The Roots of Success podcast is for the landscape professional who's looking to up their game. We're not talking lawns or grass here. We're talking about people, process, and profits. The things deep within the business that need focus to scale a successful company. From hiring the right people and managing your team, to improving your operations and mastering your finances, we've got a brain trust of experts to help you nurture the roots of a successful business and grow to the next level. This is the Roots of Success.
Welcome to another episode of Roots of Success podcast. I'm your host, and we've got another great episode from you. We've got this awesome, blazing young professional named Austyn Roth from Jupiter, Florida. In the last few weeks, we've become some close friends, and we've traveled together a lot lately. And I had to have this kid on the show because he is absolutely inspirational. Austyn, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Doing great. You are in Florida, which everyone is jealous about 80% of the year. And you were born and raised in Florida, right?
Yeah, I'm born and raised here.
Good. So tell me about this. You're young and you are inspirational as a young professional, but let's take a step back. You're 21 years old now. And just as of a few weeks ago, so happy birthday. But
Thank you.
But you started this journey long time ago, basically pushing a mower. Tell us and the audience how that transpired.
Yeah, so it really just started in my local neighborhood here in Jupiter, Florida, which is just north of West Palm Beach. And what started out as just a push mower, it got one house, two houses, and just kind of built it. And eventually I was maxed out in my small little radius. And after a couple of years, I was probably 8, 9, 10. And when I was probably about 14, I bought a side-by-side golf cart. I got a little trailer on the back of it and expanded my radius. So I was able to get more accounts. And what happened with that was that the police pulled me over. They weren't really liking it. No license, no insurance.
Yeah.
And,
so hold on. I got to pause there. You had a golf cart and a trailer, and you were going to mow people's lawns up and around the street neighborhoods, right?
Yeah. I was driving on
a license.
Exactly.
Oh,
so I thought I had the little slow moving triangle. I thought I was good to go.
That's great. Instead of driving a mower, you upgraded to a golf cart and just killed it around the neighborhood. That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
So eventually that came to an end, and that's when I bought my first truck. So I was 15 and I bought a truck. I got my dad to co-sign on it. It was like a lease. It was like $200 a month.
Yeah. And
this was 6 years ago. And I was like, well, I know I can afford that. I just have to find a driver now. So I found a driver, and he worked for a company that worked 410s, which was perfect because he worked for me on his Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
it slowly kind of built then.
Yeah. So tell me about this story. Like you had a handful of clients, you're riding around the neighborhood, and how did you get your first bigger client? Like, what are someone's like, man, I got this 15-year-old kid knocking on my door about this HOA property or this commercial property. Like, what in the right mind should I give this guy my business?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because our first actual HOA that had a board, I met with them when I was 15 because I didn't drive there by myself. I just still remember, getting out of the passenger seat. So,
wait, who took you there?
The driver that I had hired.
Nice.
So he took me. We showed up in the truck. I got out of the passenger seat and met with them, and they didn't hire me because they thought I was too young.
Okay.
And the funny part is 6 months later, they called me and they said, whoever they had hired isn't keeping up and we need you to start next week. And I was like, perfect,
Oh my God.
And it was actually in PGA National where they have, one of the golf tournaments at. So it's a pretty well-known, subdivision. And it was a little, a little townhome community in there. So, and funny enough, we still do it today, 6 years later.
So I love the adversity. They tell you, you're too young. Austyn, hit the road, like get out of here. But you never let that deter you, right? And you probably
Yeah.
got a lot of no's
Yeah.
throughout your young career. But like, why did you just not give up?
I mean, I think, right, there's always enhancement money. There's always money that they're spending. And I really don't recall, but I know we did the flowers before we got the maintenance there. So they might have even called us to do their flowers, and then they gave us the maintenance like 2 weeks after that or something.
Yeah.
But I know we did flowers there beforehand. So, right, there's always enhancement, there's always tree work, there's always irrigation, that they might not be happy with their guy. They might think he's overbilling and they don't have a trustworthy relationship. And hey, we're always in their back pocket, so they try to give us a shot.
Yeah, I love that. I love the opportunity of maybe you're not getting the maintenance, but how do we do some seasonal enhancements? Or how can I prove to you, yes, I look young. Yes, I am young. But how do I prove to you that we're a worthy company and can do great business? So that was kind of your niche to say, I'll prove it to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I always say, like, it's not if, it's when. It's everybody switches landscapers. Is it in next year or is it 10 years from now? They will switch though. You will get a new car, maybe not next year, maybe in 3 years. So it's not always if they will, because they will. It's just when.
When. Yeah, I love that. I remember starting in my young career at a college, and I was on job sites, and I had to report to subcontractors and people out in the field that have got 25 years experience. And they'll look at me going, I'm not even going to take a word from you because you're just way too young. And I'm like, I don't really care, but I bring a different vision to this job site. I can see things a little bit differently that maybe you've not, been accustomed to for the last 25 years. So I love that story of the underdog, the young guy, the young girl out there that says, great, no is the answer now, but at some point down the road, I'm coming back and I'm going to be in your neighborhood. So word to the wise is never give up on anything. So I love the passion. So now you've got, an HOA, right? You've got a driver.
Yep.
And then you're about to turn 16. Like, what happens in that point?
So I was continuing to sell, and I turned 16, and then I bought another truck that I drove. And it just kind of kept growing. I was really focused on marketing and advertising, and that was kind of my focus. And obviously I had the driver, so I just had to keep the sales pipeline going because I had to keep him busy. So even when I was in high school, right, I went to school. After school, I was doing quotes. So I wasn't really doing much physical work except on the weekends, because after school I had to go do quotes, estimates, and help on little projects here or there. And then it was repeat the same thing the next day. So it really kind of fast tracked building the business versus working in it. I was working on it.
What that is actually a really good point, that you did the actual mowing and landscaping as a young kid on the side, right? So after school, before school, weekends, nights, evenings. And what's intriguing to me is that you had the ability, like, I still got to go to school, and then I got to do sales and marketing and estimating and sell the job. So I can't be the one that actually performs the field work. So it's catapulting you immediately into a sort of an ownership, which is, in my opinion, you kind of have an advantage over a lot of businesses that are in it every single day, right? So, and then all the times we coach to, like, how do you get away from the business? But like, you are forced to get out of it immediately. So your mind is starting to think about an owner already, right? So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, right, it kind of forced me to work on the business versus in it. I couldn't sell a job and go do it the next day, right? I had, a driver and probably a laborer at that point, and I had to keep them busy. There wasn't an option because I couldn't afford to lose the two people that I was able to get working every week for me for 2 days. It's hard to find someone that wants to do that, but luckily with their normal schedule, it worked out. So, it really put me into it. We were using Jobber for a couple of years early on before we switched to LMN to really grow the business side of it, right? It's like LMN was a really good budgeting tool for us. I think we got on it 4 or 5 years ago at this point, and it really, I started understanding numbers, how to actually quote jobs and tracking, like, are we making money? Are we not making money?
Right.
So really early on figuring that out, it really set us up for success to actually build a business that gives us the ability to hire people
Yeah.
for the proper positions.
Yeah. So let's talk about the operations of the software, right? Whatever software you use, Element's a great one. But at the end of the day, you just got to use a software. But
Yeah.
I feel like did you immediately get into software, immediately into the business? Like, I got to get something to estimate? Or were you just estimating like in Excel spreadsheets and Word documents or chicken scratch paper, or like, and then to turn that into operations to see how you're doing? Like, what was the trigger? Is it just because you were networking with others, or like there's got to be a better way to do this?
Well, I mean, I think honestly, we were just spinning wheels. We weren't having the most profitable jobs. And I was like, all this money in, and there's not much money left over.
Okay.
And we were getting into bigger maintenance customers, $5,000 a month, $7,000 a month. And I didn't know how we justified where we got to that number. Like there
Yeah.
is no justification. They told us their budget was $7,000 and we put it at $7,000, you know?
Yeah.
So that's when it's like, there's got to be a way to
Right.
figure out how we came up with that number. And that's when I think I was looking for a better software that
Yeah.
we could do budgeting in, and really helps us capture how we got to that. And then that's when I found out we built our budget, we're bidding man hours,
Yeah.
and there's a lot more to it. Like all we do is sell labor,
Yeah.
like we're a landscape company, but we sell labor and that's all we do.
Yeah. We sell labor and we have a budget of labor and we go do it in the budget that we have. Like, it's not hard, right, Austyn?
Yeah.
You make it sound so easy, but it actually is really easy at the end of the day. And so tell me about, what makes Lucky Landscaping in Jupiter, Florida sort of different than anybody else?
I think in our market, we're probably one of the last locally owned companies that has the ability to work on larger scale properties. So a lot of what we work on is larger HOAs, 200 home to 700 home communities where we're doing every house. And I think nowadays you have a lot of private equity owned companies. There's not really a personal touch.
Yeah.
And people just don't care about the customer or any of the homeowners in there. So I think we really strive to be the local company, locally owned, locally operated. Me or our employees, we all eat, dine, and play in the same town. So we're going to run into these people at restaurants or at the beach. And I don't want to see someone out in the public that doesn't like us, because we had a budget and we couldn't deliver to them. Like, quality is our standard.
Yeah. So you're the owner and president of Lucky Landscaping. What's your role day to day now?
It changes. In the last year, it's been changing rapidly as we grow, and my position changes all the time, but it's really working on building a team, training people, setting the standard in the field, production wise, account manager wise. This is how we operate. This is how we were successful getting to where we're at today. And that's what we need to continue. So it's really expressing how we got to where we're at today.
Yeah.
And continue that, because that's how we'll grow.
Yeah. And so are you selling, you're going to HOAs and still, I would assume you're estimating, or someone is, and you're taking that bid and trying to get more work, correct?
Yeah, so I'm always networking, and we target a couple HOAs. I mean, and that's what we do. So I'm always looking for HOAs that are having issues, and even if they're not, hey, do you need tree trimming? Do you need anything? We're here. Emergencies, you call us in the middle of the night. You got an irrigation valve that's stuck on. I'll come out there. So just being there for people.
Yeah. So now that you've got a somewhat established, you're starting to run into things that you never dreamed of having to do, running a landscape business. Like you had the mower, right? And then you had the golf cart and trailer, you bought your first truck, and now you've got a staff of people, and now you have yourself where you're still selling, constantly watching budget. You've got to you've got a software picked out that you're using. But I remember yesterday on a call, someone told me, says, yeah, man, we're working with Austyn, but like he's got to have an organizational chart. Do you remember this conversation? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's things like organizational chart, and Austin's probably like, what in the hell is that? Like, it's just
Yeah.
me and a group of field staff to working, but like you're having to
Yeah.
sort of train your thoughts because they don't teach anything about that in sort of any education or school, right? So you're having to change and build a business like that's great with structure. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So, right. There's a lot of challenges as you grow, of
Yeah.
course. And when you're doubling and you go from 2 million to 4 million and hopefully 6 or 7, there's obviously a lot of growth very quickly, a lot of people. And it's how quickly can you train somebody to your standard is kind of the challenge that you face doing that. It's easy increasing sales by a couple 100,000 a year. You're adding one account manager, you're training him, and you can spend time with him. But when you're adding 2 or 3 and a big book of business and your whole tree service division is growing and all while at the same time managing production, because if you're not on it, production will slack off.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff that we face. Like it's a big numbers game at this point of how do you manage the numbers, but also do what you promise to a customer and not sacrifice quality. So that's definitely a big part of what we do. And I think we'll cut margins because we're going to do what we said we're going to do. Right now we're doing a lot of fertilizer. Fertilizer's expensive. We're probably going above and beyond, but guess what? We want a quality product delivered to set us apart from the competition.
Yeah. I love train to your standard, right? Because in a fast growing business, the first thing that starts to fail is the standard of your company. And it's the quality, it's the people, it's the production, it's the shortcuts, because you're running around like crazy trying to run a business. But like, you got to stay true to yourself and true to your business standards. And that makes total sense to you. So, I would say that you're probably recommending like stay true to yourself, to what you mean. And it's not about the quantity of properties you want. You want the quality. Tell me about, you've got a special niche of clientele that I've noticed over the last few years. And you've been able to define the client, we call it the ideal client, pretty dang close. Like you've nailed it, right? You're not doing like commercial, residential, industrial, and everything under the sun, gutter cleaning, and you name it. You've got a niche. Why is that so important early in your business to kind of nail that down?
Yeah, so it's like we're 100% commercial. We're 95% high-end HOA and maybe another 5% of miscellaneous commercial, but we're 95% HOA, single-family townhome communities. And it really goes back to the training the standard. Well, if you're doing so many different sectors of commercial, you have a different standard on every single aspect. So it really goes back to like, I mean, if you look at all the airline companies, right, you have Spirit that is your low cost, low fare, and then you have Delta that's going to be your higher end. And they both do one thing extremely well. They can both make plenty of money doing what they do, but they know who their client is and what they provide. And that's what we've done. It just makes it much easier to train the standard, not only to managers, but to the field guys. So there's a big difference in doing Class C multifamily versus doing Class A HOA, $1 million plus houses.
Yeah, love it. And down in Florida, you're year round. There's no seasonality, snow, and this season, this. You are constantly pruning and mowing and cleanups, basically year round. Oh, and then by the way, you have a couple of hurricanes and tropical storms throughout the season, and then you go all in on cleanups. Early on, I want to talk about this tree trimming side that you added on not too long ago, but you saw a need, right? of, okay,
Yeah.
I'm doing all this property maintenance, but I need to add something else to my arsenal of services. What was the trigger point in that? And you chose tree trimming for what reason?
Yeah. So I think really the tree service came, we were subbing some out, but definitely not a substantial amount to like justify it.
Okay.
I think it really came down that we had potential clients asking us for tree
Ah,
trimming bids. I can't send a sub out when I'm trying to get my foot in the door.
yeah.
And that next, they just gave me the job. I'm 17, 18 years old, whatever, and I'm just subbing it out. And they're
Yeah.
like, well, that defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
So it became, we were getting all these opportunities. We need to self perform it because otherwise we're not going to be able to get more work from these people. So I think I was probably 18 when I bought my first bucket truck. It was an old Asplund truck. I think that's how everyone starts their tree
Yep.
service. But I had an orange bucket truck running around, and we picked up communities doing their palms, doing removals, just all sorts of side job. Margins were great. Finally, once I proved that we were successful with it, we bought a new bucket truck, and then we upgraded our chipper. But it all started as used equipment to prove the concept. I wasn't going to go out and, or I couldn't afford to buy a $150,000 bucket truck. So
Yeah.
it really was that we were getting opportunity. We wanted to do the work ourselves so that we could have the potential opportunity to get the maintenance or other work in the community.
Yeah. That's nice. I love how you progressed. First off, there's a need that the clients say, trim our trees. And it's so embarrassing to say, I can't do that, right? I don't do that. So you say, all right, we're going to get a subcontractor. Somehow we're going to figure out ways to get work done. And all of a sudden you're like, all right, subcontractor work for a minute, abort that, get my own used truck, work it, figure out the kinks, get the new truck, and now you're rolling. And now that crew's full time, correct?
Yeah, we have 2 tree trucks. It's 8 guys right now. And I mean, they're full time. And right now it's slow season and we're 6 weeks out. And
wow,
right after that, we have contracted tree contracts that we'll just roll into. We leave a week here or there open just as a time block if we need to squeeze someone in or the weather. But for the most part, they stay solid booked on tree trimming and removals and stuff like that.
I just had a random thought. I would assume all of your field staff and everyone that works for you is younger. Am I correct? I mean,
no, they're all
older. Everyone's older than you, correct? So what do they say working for Austyn?
I mean, I think when you're in it, it's just like any other business. So, I mean, obviously I'm a little biased because I don't see it that way.
Yeah.
Some older people probably do, but I think once they're in it and they see our relationship, and I think, right, everyone has the initial doubts of like, oh, it's probably his dad's company. But once you're here, once you see how we run, you see me interacting with the customers, you hear from the customers, it's a totally different atmosphere then.
Good for you. I would be very excited to work with someone like you because I believe the young kid and the young entrepreneur spirit that you have, Austyn, that you're going to try anything and you're going to do anything and you're going to fail along the way, no matter what. And that's great as an employee because you're going to grow and provide more opportunity for these employees, which is fascinating. So I would think you would have no shortage of people wanting to work for Austyn.
Yeah. I mean, right. As long as people are willing to try something new, they'll be successful here, right? Because you can't come and expect the old ways to work because I'm full of ideas and we try a lot of new stuff all the time. Some of it is stupid, but long term it works out. So some stuff's more complicated than it needs to be, but there's always a motive behind it. And hey, if 2 months from now it's not working, then okay, we'll get rid of it.
Abort the mission.
We're out until we try it.
We got to do something else. I get it. So Austyn, for our listeners, what's one thing that you've struggled with or was not successful with in starting, running, and up until this day of having a landscape company? Anything that jumps out to you?
Nowadays, it's building a strong management team that is truly supportive for the client. The equipment finance obviously was an issue early on when I was young. Now it's easy. I mean, we have tax returns that show we make money and we have proof of income.
Yeah.
But yeah, really building a team and training them and trying to retain them is always a struggle.
Yeah, that's going to be the hard task for you. That's sort of uncharted territory, but I know you're going to do it. You're going to do it very well. You've got a lot of great people around you that are supporting, and even your peer group members, your team, your coaches, and then anyone and everyone that you've met across the country traveling and speaking.
Yeah.
I mean, for crying out loud, a couple of weeks ago, we got some in-depth conversations and actually had a really good time at the LMN conference in Orlando, which is your backyard. Tell our audience what award did you win there?
Yeah, so I won the Young Professional Landscaper of the Year award.
Yeah, what does that mean to you in Lucky Landscape?
I think it really makes it just kind of embraces like my background, how we started. And I think it motivates other young people. I think there's been tons of people that have reached out and, hey, I'm always here to help people. And even in the local market, right? And I tell people, like, why wouldn't you talk to your competition? They're just going to make you better because they see all your flaws.
Yeah.
And they notice stuff that the customer won't notice because they're in the business. So they're your best feedback in reality. And if you can become friends with them, they won't try to steal your work. So I'm friends with all of them. I try to be. Some don't want to be, but I try to be friends with all the competition. And I look at it as, right, even if they take work from us, we did something wrong as a company. So why did the opportunity come up for them to win that job? If it was just price, whatever, but something happened that we lost the job.
Yeah. There's always room for
always make it better.
Yeah, always room for improvement, right? And competition is great. And it goes back to your standards at the end of the day. We've got to be better than we were if we were to lose that. So I've got a quote that you go by, and you're probably like thinking, what in the world is he doing? I firmly believe in the principle that money will follow when we stay true to our values and consistently deliver on our promises. What made you have that on your website?
I think it was the fact that, right, early on when I was young, right, money talks, they say, and I was chasing every dollar that we could, and we would take on any job site we could, and that's where I brought up the multifamily and the Class C apartments. They loved me because we were giving them good prices, and we weren't getting any enhancements from them. So it's like we were making no money on it. We were cutting grass and weeding, and yeah, they were paying us $250,000 a year between 3 properties. And so being 18 and having that kind of revenue from one customer was amazing. But as any landscaper knows, if you're not getting enhancements, that 250,000, what are we making? 5% on it, if that? So there was no enhancement. So that's when we really focused on, well, what does an ideal client look like for us? And we want to cut the grass, trim the trees, do the irrigation, do the pest control, do the flowers, the mulch. And that's when we defined who the ideal customer is for us. And once we focused on, right, they weren't the best margin off the bat because we had to break into that sector. So we went strong head into it, started really providing value and quality work. And hey, our margin might not have been there then. Now it's definitely improved. But that's where that quote kind of comes into play, that the money isn't always important as the quality job you do, and the money will follow. You do a quality job, you build trust, they'll give you the enhancements.
I love it, right? At the end of the day, you've set a standard, you're training to the standard, and your quality to the standard of Lucky Landscaping. And that doesn't change. So it's no different than the Ritz-Carlton way, right? It is what it is, and that's our standard, and we're never going to back down from it. So I love the rawness of that. That's great. So Austyn, as we wrap things up, this is all great. Any nuggets to leave behind with our audience of that you would like to leave? Like, man, this is it. This is what kept me going. And I'm going to step up and say one, but I love the fact that never, never, never give up. And at the end of the day, you pushed a mower around the neighborhood, got a golf cart with a trailer, got pulled over in trouble, and then that didn't let you down. You led to another no for an HOA because you're too young and too young and too young. And it's just you kept persevering down the way of saying, I can do this, and never give up and keep going. That's one of my great takeaways. What is yours?
Yeah, I mean, right? Never give up. Stay true to what you promise a customer. When it really goes back to staying true to what you promise your customer and build trust with them.
Yeah.
It's easier to make customer happy than it is to find a customer.
Totally.
So keep them happy. It takes months to get a customer and minutes to lose one. So it's always keeping the customer happy. Keeping your people happy, training to your standard. How did you become successful, and duplicate that?
Yeah.
So
that's great. Austyn, man, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. Once again, it's Austyn Roth from Lucky Landscape in Jupiter, Florida. 21 years old. It's just a fascinating story. I can guarantee you, though, he's not going to let this go to his head. He's probably going to go put his head into the business and keep excelling down the road. So Austyn, we got to have you again and see how you're doing and keep us updated along the way. But it's been a pleasure having you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. See you next time, buddy.
Ready to take the next step? Download our free profitability scorecard to quickly create your own baseline financial assessment and uncover the fastest ways to improve your business. Just go to mcfarlandstanford.com/scorecard to get yours today. To learn more about McFarland Stanford, our best-in-class peer groups, and other services, go to our website at mcfarlandstanford.com, and don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next time on The Roots of Success.